Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Real Quick with Mike Swick podcast, special quarantine series, episode number 11. Today, we have a very special guest, as I always say. But let me bring you back to November of 2009. I had won 4 fights as a welterweight. I was on my way to a title shot. And Dana White calls me and gives me those words that you never forget. I'm going to put you in a fight, and it's going to be a contention fight. And if you win this fight, you're going to get a main event fight against George St. Pierre. What do you think? Obviously, I think I'm going to take this fight, and I'm going to win and fight George St. Pierre. So that didn't happen. I did take that fight, and that person who beat me and took that title fight and went on to fight George St. Pierre is our guest today. He's a great guy. Much respect. I've always respected him before we fought. I respected him during our fight. You can't fight someone for 15 straight minutes and not have respect for him. And he's doing great now, and it's great to see. I'm talking about Dan Hardy. Dan Hardy, welcome to the show, buddy.
How are you, man? You good?
Good. Long time. Been a while.
Long time. How are things over there?
Good, man. I mean, I guess the quarantine obviously is and the pandemic, I guess, is a pretty bad situation. So it's attacking everybody. So I wanted to ask you about being in London. It seems like y'all took a pretty big hit as well. Here in Thailand, everything's shut down. The gym shut down. Right now, pretty much all restaurants, businesses that aren't essential, it's shut down. So it's pretty bad, man. What's it like you're not in London. You're north of London, correct?
Yeah, I'm about 100 miles north. And to be honest, I bet it's a lot stranger in London, to be honest, because obviously those streets are used to being packed full of people and shops open and, everything going on. Whereas I live in a little village in the countryside, which it's quite peaceful anyway. Even in rush hour, it's relatively quiet in my village. So it's quite, it doesn't really affect me too much. I'm kind of out of the loop a bit, and I don't mind being at home. It's been quite a nice break for me. So I've not been out anywhere at all. I've not needed to, but I know a lot of other people are struggling, obviously, with everything being shut down. I got back to the country just as the lockdown started. I was traveling back from Brazil, and I got into the country on the Monday, and I think by the Thursday they started the lockdown process. And it was it's strange. It's weird. I mean, it's unprecedented in my lifetime, certainly.
Yeah.
One thing I am proud of is how everyone's kind of banded together and kind of, to deal with it, to face it as much as we can.
Yeah, I think the scary thing is going to be like what happens after this is over. I think there's going to be a lot of businesses get shut down, and the ones that are the most important, maybe not the ones the most important to the world, but the most important to the people, the small businesses and, people's livelihood, like the contract workers, the people that work, hour jobs and stuff like that, getting laid off. So it's a sad scenario that this is affecting literally every type of business, every type of people, every type of, every country, every ethnicity, it's just attacking everything. And it's crazy that like you could never expect this as a worst case scenario, and it's actually happening. So are there any like kind of laws or restrictions or anything where you're at outside of London, or is it pretty open and like, are they sticking to any kind of like mandates or anything?
Yeah, there are a lot of restrictions. I mean, all essential businesses are closed. Supermarkets are restricted hours. I have a local supermarket in the village that I can walk to from my house. But I've never experienced it before, but to stand in a line outside with 2 meters between everybody waiting. Right. So they're managing how many people are in the shop. And then restrictions on food as well to begin with. They've relaxed them now, but to begin with, you couldn't buy more than 2 of any one item in the store to make sure there was enough to go around. And then the police restrictions. Like I know the police are monitoring, people traveling. Anybody that's traveling too frequently that's noticed, that they'll be pulled over and questioned and can be fined. It's to be. Like I said, it's affecting more people than it is me. I know a lot more people are struggling than I am. I'm quite happy to, because I think one of the benefits that's coming out of this, and I was discussing this with my dad the other day, like I think it will change working habits a lot. Like a lot of people are getting used to working from home, being able to function without going into the office and wasting 7, 8 hours a day staying, in the same room as a bunch of people that don't need to be around. So I think there are positives that will come out of it as well. But certainly it's a reality check, and I think it's given us all a gut check as to whether we're all individually prepared for this kind of thing as well.
What do you think's the resolve for this? Like, are you at a point where you're going to stay quarantined or stay kind of in isolation until this thing is over, and then obviously when it's safe, come out? Or are you like to the point where you're just like, let's just face it? Like, if it was up to you and you had the decision, would you want to just face this thing, considering that the percentage of people at our age group that are actually, most people are asymptomatic. They have no symptoms at all. That's the majority. And then less than that might be, minor symptoms. And then less than that might be, you need some medicine, some antibiotics, and some treatment at home. And then obviously the worst case scenario, you go to the hospital. Even worst case scenario, you die. I'm kind of like, I've been back and forth throughout this series talking to so many different people. And it's like, I'm almost to the point now where it's like, instead of living in fear and seeing everything collapse economically, I'm like to the point where I'm ready just to face it and just go out there and just move on with our lives. And if you want to face it, get out of your house and go do it. If you don't, you stay inside and stay quarantined. Like if you're old, if you have pre-existing conditions, we quarantine those people, and everyone else just kind of face it and deal with it. And I mean, if unfortunately it takes our life, it takes our life. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and we can just move on. And I just feel like the longer we stay in this isolation and afraid and living like this, it's just not, it's not good, and it's just like, I'm getting kind of tired of it. I'm getting kind of tired of not living, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I mean, from the UK's perspective, at least, like the isolation, I think was good, and has been good up to this point, just to kind of lessen the impact on the National Health Service. I mean, we have free healthcare here. I say free, obviously we pay for it within our taxes, but I think it's an amazing privilege that we've got the NHS and the work that they do. And what this has done is allow people to realise how valuable they are and how hard they work. I mean, people that have come out of retirement to go back to hospitals to help. So the isolations help to lessen the impact on the NHS, because obviously, that first wave of people going down, if we can cut that in half, then it's far less strain on the healthcare services, which leaves the availability for the people that do really need it.
Right.
I mean, I'm of the same opinion of you, to be honest. And when this all started out, I mean, I was traveling. I've been traveling the start of the year. I've been to New Zealand and back, and Brazil and back. So I've traveled through several major airports. A couple of airports, I could quite easily see me walking through a cloud of coronavirus at a couple of times. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like I've probably been through it. And
right.
I mean, like I was sick. I don't really get sick, to be honest, unless I'm working too hard and I run myself into the ground. And then, you know yourself from training camp, you have those telltale signs of my nose is a bit stuffy, my throat's a bit sore, you know what I mean? My temperature's high. You kind of know when you're pushing yourself too much. And that's when I start to get sick. Whereas this year, I mean, like I had a cold for 7 or 8 weeks. I didn't feel quite right. And that was, in between all the traveling that I was doing. So I kind of feel like I may have had it and processed it anyway. And if not, I feel like I've at least come into contact with it. And like you said, we're strong, healthy individuals. We're likely to be able to walk through it without issue. And one thing that I think we all need to accept now is that it's a part of our environment. Like, just like the flu is, coronavirus is now a part of our reality, and it's just one of those things that we have to deal with. We have to be on point with our personal hygiene and our health, our nutrition and that kind of thing. But everyone's going to have to go through it at some point. And I think that the isolation will help, because the people that will struggle when they go through it will have people to rely on to help them. But yeah, for the most part, people I think can start getting back to normal. I mean, I was in support of the UFC event, and I got asked a lot of questions about that. There was a lot of people against it. But even with Jacare testing positive for it, he was in a hotel full of people that are all fit and healthy, and no one else has tested positive since. So, I think we've just got to kind of start getting on with things a little bit.
Yeah, two things. Like, first, I agree with you, and literally every single person that's been on the podcast, every single person I've talked to about this has either been sick since January, or they know of people that's been sick since January, and it's the exact same symptoms. So it's not a coincidence, right? Like every single person I've talked to. I feel like a lot of us have had it or have went through it and beat it or got past it, and nobody knows, because like apparently it's really hard to get tested. Like in America, there's people that are sick going to the hospital and they're still not testing them. They're telling them they're not sick enough, go home. If you get a fever over this amount and you get this, and this, then come back and we'll test you. So they're testing the sickest people. And then in America, I mean, we've had 1.4 million cases now. And of course, we've had 82,000 deaths. But it's so misconstrued with like, I mean, all these people that have cancer and that they have pneumonia or they have pre-existing conditions that are really bad. If they happen to get corona and they're diagnosed with it and still die of cancer or still die of pneumonia or still die of whatever it is, it's automatically considered a coronavirus death, right? But it's like, I don't know. It's crazy to me that like, I don't know, man. What do you do? I mean, you can't change when you're dealing with so many people, so many governments, so many countries, you can't change it like sitting like we are, like I'm sure you're getting hit somehow financially and at least your freedom. I am as well too. And it's like, it sucks that we can't really do anything about it. You know what I mean? Like we have to wait for the powers that be to tell us what to do. And it seems like they're wrong. It seems like every day, even they're all issuing statements that they're recanting and putting out, new facts every week. And it's just like, I think that's the frustrating part when I feel like and then when you try to find the stats of the people that's actually dying, that's the hardest stat to find. Like it'll tell you how many people's dying, but when you start searching for the age groups and the pre-existing conditions, it's almost impossible to find out. And I think the reason is because they're really old and they all are really sick. And they don't want you to know that. And that creates like a possibility of an agenda. And that scares me, because if it gets to a situation where there is some big agenda going on, how long is this going to last? You know what I mean? Like how long are they going to use that and use their power to keep us down? And then we have to live oppressed in this situation. That was long-winded, but that was kind of like, that's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
No, I'm hearing you, man. I mean, like, yeah, certainly it's changed a few things for me. I mean, I'm not normally at home for more than 3 or 4 days at a time, and I've been at home now for 6 weeks. I've walked to the shop, not driven anywhere, or anything like that, not seen my family aside from through the wonders of the internet. But at the same time, I'm kind of, I always have to see what I've got and the opportunities that I've got, and I'm using this time to kind of prepare myself for the next stage, for what's to come, because it won't be like this forever. Things will get back to normal. I think things will always be different. I certainly think that we have been affected by this, and like social distancing now will always be something that is something to take into account. Like people's understanding of their own hygiene, their own health and nutrition, I think has shifted as well. Just because the thing is, I mean, yeah, absolutely, there are games being played. The media are great for spreading fear and propaganda and making people think and feel certain things, and sit inside and panic and freak out, and just get in cycles of stupid TV and just eat junk food and think it's the end of the world. Like, I mean, that's the media's job. It's like it's a toxic, it's a toxic machine, really, the media. And I think that there is a lot of that going on. I kind of tune out to the media, to be honest. I mean, like I know, like my own reality around me. I know that like one of the black belts that graded me when I was 17 to my black belt, a guy called Master Malcolm Siddle, he died recently. I think he was in his 80s. He was an old man who had respiratory issues as well. So. Like, you're right. I think there are people that are susceptible to it, and I think unfortunately this thing showed up, and that's the other thing we get onto. Where has it come from, and how has it showed up in our environment all of a sudden, and the ethics and morals around it, and I mean that's probably a whole podcast in itself. But for what it is, it's in our environment right now, and it's taking out a chunk of the population that are susceptible to it. And you look back through human history. I mean, it happens over and over again. There's always, it's like nature it's like a culling. You know what I mean? It's like it removes a chunk of the species because we're getting out of hand. And to be honest, I don't think this is too bad at all. I think this is a warning shot over the bow. Like, if we assume this is from nature, which is a debate in itself, I'm sure you'll agree with me.
Yeah.
If we assume this is from nature, then this to me is a warning shot. This is a warning shot over the bow of the boat. Like, hey, don't go any further. You're pushing your luck. You're burning through the fossil fuels. Anything on the planet that's finite, you're wrecking it. Anything that's beautiful, you're consuming it. I mean, and the whole thing points it back to the wet markets, and their ethics and morals are horrendous when it comes to wildlife. Like, it kind of feels like a punishment. You kind of feel like that the wrath of God's coming through in some way. And I'm not a biblical person at all, but you can see where people of the past things on the Bible and they were being punished. Like, I mean, this might be a warning shot. We might need to fix up and look sharp.
Yeah, it's hard. I feel the same way, and I was trying to figure out a way to word it, because it's like, you don't want to sound insensitive, but at the same time, it's like, in the world, when you look at every species outside of the human race, it's pretty much the strong survive and the weak don't. But the species, us, humans, it's like the weak can survive. The weaker can survive, and they can survive well for a long time. We take care of each other. We're the most sophisticated. So it's not crazy to think that there is something coming along that's kind of taken away the more weaker, as like you said, like a nature thing. And the only reason I feel this is I've always believed in a law of balance. I'm not religious like what you were saying, but I do feel there's a law of balance in the world. And I think it's a weird coincidence that like this thing is not only kind of taking out the people that are sick, and it is obviously kind of taking out some of the population of the world, but it's also cleaning the world. You look at global warming, you look at the pollution, you look at all these different stats coming back now of how clean the world is, clean the water is, clean the air is. It's weird how something so tragic to humans is so beneficial to the world. And then you start wondering, like, wow, it's almost kind of like what you said. It's almost like a nature thing where it's like a cleanse, and it's like, it's insensitive to say because there's people that's dying and it's unfortunate and you don't want to see anybody die. But when you look at the animal world or like other species, like I said, I mean, it's an unfortunate life for many. I mean, the weak die all the time, or the old die all the time. We're one of the very few species on Earth that can have these great long lives and live fantastic, until we're like 80 and 90 years old. So, it's kind of like, I don't know. And like what you said too, I agree that it could be a lot worse. We could have had something that hit us a lot harder than this. So at least it's not that, where it's like the Spanish flu or something and killing a lot more people.
I mean, I remember a story it's quite close to home really, because it's a village that's, not too far from where I live, where I grew up. But it's an old story from back in, I don't know, maybe the 1700s. But it was a breakout called the bubonic plague, and that was basically it was transmitted into Derbyshire, which is about 120 miles north of London, about where I'm at. It was transferred on some cloth, on some liniment that was being transferred to a tailor, and as these fleas were moved up to this place, they carried this bubonic plague, and it broke out in this village, and it killed like 60% of the people in the village. But they completely isolated the village. And you can go to the place, and like all the little houses have got plaques on the wall of who lived there and who died in the plague, and it's called Eyam. I mean, it's a fascinating story, and that was one individual village, and all the people decided they were going to isolate themselves. But if I compare what they went through to what we went through, I mean, they like the nursery rhyme "Ring a Ring of Roses." That's what that's from. The Ring of Roses is the sores that they would break out in. I mean, this is flu where people struggle to breathe, and it's attacking people that are weaker. I mean, that could take out anybody, no matter who they were, what age, what health. Like this is a warning shot, definitely. And like you said, like it is kind of it does seem like a cleansing process, not only for the world, but for like, for humanity. I mean, we're starting to change our habits as well. A lot of people are changing the way that they live, and like, being more aware of the transfer of germs and bacteria and that kind of thing. I think, to be honest, like I feel like as a species, though, we're kind of at a fork in the road. Like we could go one or two ways at the moment. Like, and I think, if we think about this on a much bigger scale, like the universe, like think there are planets all over the universe that are populated with a species. I think maybe every species might get to a point in their development, in their evolution, where they either become the cancer that eats the planet that they're on, or a part of the planet that flourishes and grows and springs off into spreads off into other things, moves into the rest of the universe or whatever. I think we've got an opportunity here to either continue wrecking the planet or become a part of it and recognize that we're all one we're all one thing without
Yeah.
sounding like a hippie.
Yeah. No, I
That was
agree
very
with you.
long-winded.
No, that's good. Hey, we're even. It's like our fight. We just go back and forth. Except you win at the end. Maybe I'll win this
Very,
one. But the thing is
mate.
I
I always say that could have gone either way. Honestly, it could. It was, and
yeah.
if it
I
was at
feel
middleweight,
much better.
well,
I feel much better losing my title fight. It's
I'm glad we
so
can still be
it's
friends.
so much easier sitting on your end of the screen right now. Trust me. Trust me when I tell you, brother. The guy who fought George St. Pierre. Yeah, trust me. It's much better over
So,
there. But congratulations to you. You're the better man. But the crazy thing is, like what you were saying though, like all the ways that we help global warming and help all these clean the planet, don't pollute the ocean. We need to take a break from fishing. We need to take a break from polluting the ocean. We need to take a break from polluting the air with our emissions. We need to do all these things. No matter how much you preach and how many people protest and how much stuff you do, nothing would have stopped all of that from happening except this. And this stopped it like in its tracks. That makes you like wonder, like, holy shit. Like, for whatever reason, we're doing exactly what the world wants us to do, which is fucking weird, man. And someone like myself I'm not anti-religious. I'm just not religious to a specific thing. I know there's something. We're not here, there's something that put us here, and I'm not just going to believe something because somebody tells me, but I know there's something here. And so I believe in this like law of balance. I believe in being good to people, and it comes back around. Obviously, I'm not, I don't want to be an asshole and think I'm going to get away with it. But that law of balance, man, this just backs it up even more. It's so weird when you think about it,
yeah. The question is though, is it are people changing, or is it impacted their has it activated their selfishness in some way? Because like if you say to someone you could get sick, you better stay at home, they'll stay at home. But it's like you can't get sick, but everyone else can. But you can transmit it to everybody else. Would that person then stay at home? Is the
Right.
question. Like it's when it becomes a question of personal mortality. Like, okay, hang on, can I suffer here? And what do I? You know what I mean? That selfishness thing still kicks in sometimes. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't go over and see my grandma because I feel like she's vulnerable, but I'm not. I would go and see her today, but I wouldn't because she's vulnerable and I know she is. And I think that that's something that we also have to bear in mind. Is even if we are healthy, who are we around, and what could we potentially be endangering them with?
Yeah, and I agree with you, man. I think that people who are in the demographic that's not being affected, except for a very, very small percentage, should be allocated to live our lives and move on until there's adequate testing, where we have tests available everywhere. And then the old and the guys with pre-existing conditions or whatever, they have to stay isolated and obviously protect themselves and stay away from everybody. I mean, how long is it going to take? I mean, if we get on with our lives and wait for tests to come around, it'll take no more than a year. There'll be tests everywhere. You can get a test every day. And then at that stage, we can test ourselves, see if we have it or if we've been, cured from it. And then we can go see our families and see our grandparents and see the people that are more vulnerable. I think that's what should happen. We should just have a pause from seeing the people that are susceptible, and then the rest of us move on with our lives and not let everything cave in. Sorry about the break, guys, but I got to thank our sponsor, AKA Thailand. I just want to say, before I show you guys what AKA Thailand is, for those of you that don't know, we are still doing a 30% discount reopen special. As of right now, we're mandated to open June 15th by the Thai government. I think that's going to stay true. I think I'm sticking to it. We're planning for that date to open. At worst case, it might be July 1st if it gets postponed. I don't think this is going to last much longer, to be honest with you. But the 30% special, if you purchase now on akthailand.com, you save 30% on all group training classes, and that will last forever. There's no expiration date. So you can book it now, and then you can come as soon as the pandemic is over with, or you can come in a year, 2 years from now, whenever you want. As soon as you book it, your name goes into our system, and it stays there. If you later want to change it to somebody else, transfer it to one of your friends, or if you want to buy it now for somebody else, that's perfectly fine as well. Just send us an email, let us know. know. We'll transfer the name, and whoever wants to can come take advantage of it. So that way, when this pandemic is over, this quarantine is over, all you guys are stir crazy and wanting to get out of your house, now you save 30% to come to AKA Thailand and train. It's already cheap here, to get accommodations. We can set that up for you with our on-site accommodations. We have a restaurant. We can get you meal plans, motorbike rental, VIP, and regular taxi pickups from the airport. Tours, if you want, we can do it all. So just email info@akathailand.com if you have any questions, or you can go to akathailand.com and just order right off the website. Everything's set up at 30% discount for group training classes. For those of you that don't know what AKA Thailand is, here's the commercial.
What's up, everybody? I am here in Thailand. This is the first time I've ever been here. Been dying to come here for years. The great Mike Swick. He's one of the big reasons he's been trying to pull me down here. What he built down here, AKA Thailand, is incredible. There's people here from all over the world. You can train mixed martial arts here, jiu-jitsu. They have weightlifting, they have cardio, and obviously they have Muay Thai, boxing, everything. I'm telling you guys, I know everybody wants to go to Thailand because Thailand's so cool, but you can't come to Thailand without coming to AKA Thailand. Come on.
Let me ask you this. What do you think after this happens, the effects are going to be? Like for you, for instance, are you going to change? Like I'm OCD anyway, so I'm already crazy. Like as far as I'm OCD in a good way for business because I overthink everything, which means I think everything, I don't count the door shutting and line everything up in my fucking cabinets or anything. I'm not like that OCD. I'm like OCD for germs. I really am. I'm clean. I think it was from fighting, not wanting to get sick for fight camp. I was so paranoid for so many years, trying not to get sick in fight camp, trying not to get sick on fight week. So I'm just stuck that way. So I'm already kind of like that. Do you think we're going to change after this and everybody's going to be a lot less intimate, the way they greet each other and the way we act and the way we... Do you think it's going to change anything, or do you think we'll get over this and it'll just kind of be, okay, we'll get back to normal? Because I think everyone's going to fear that next thing now. Because now we know these things can come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And you never know when that next thing's going to happen. We didn't know this was going to happen, and then all of a sudden, boom. So it's I think it's going to change things.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the social distancing thing will be present, and I think that handshaking is far more valuable now. Like you wouldn't shake the hands of somebody that you didn't trust, not because you don't trust them you wouldn't trust them with your wallet kind of thing, but you don't trust that what's on their hand kind of circumstance. And that again, it relates back to your own safety. You know what I mean? Like how do I defend myself against this vulnerability? And I do think people will change. I don't know how it's going to be like with like live sports in stadiums. I think that's going to be very different. And I think back to we were watching some old music videos earlier today, and I was thinking back to when I was going to Sepultura gigs and Megadeth gigs, and we were crammed into the same place, sweating on each other, and they were all filthy people. I mean, they were good people, but we were they were all teenagers and stuff. Everybody was drunk, and so I think a lot of things, a lot of habits will change, and I think a lot of I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I think we're going to see a bit of a division in people. I think a lot of people are realizing that they're very comfortable to live like this. They're very comfortable to live on their own timeline, work from home, see the people that they need to see, but not really step outside of that bubble necessarily. I think a lot of people will start to try and adopt that lifestyle. So I think we might see a lot of internet or online businesses become much more popular. But then the other way, I think a lot of people are just dying to get out and socialize and be around people. So we might just see two branches off and two very, very different dealings with it. The people that do want to continue kind of being isolated and self-contained, and then the people that desperately need that connection.
No, I totally agree with you, man. I definitely agree with you. The fist bump's going to be strong now. I think that's going to be a a big move. So you mean to tell me, while I was like sacrificing since I was 8 years old, like not drinking and partying and training all the time and being super crazy dedicated to the sport, you were at like fucking Megadeth concerts with drunk people partying until you took my title shot away? Is that, I mean, it just kind of just passed through my mind as we were talking. Is that true? Is that a true statement? Is that how you got to the title shot and then beat me? Because I should have been partying at Megadeth concerts. Fuck my life, man. Fuck my life, dude.
I drank for 2 years and I've not drank since. I stopped drinking when I was 17. I haven't drank since.
Okay. All right.
But I did go to a lot of shows, I must admit. A lot of late nights, but I did train hard. Mate, I trained every day, man. I was dedicated. I worked hard.
I know you did.
That's why I understand where you're at, because you're like, nothing ever came easy to you either. You worked hard for everything you got, man, and you can see that in the way that you live your life now.
It's a thing that I tell people, man, because like I didn't get where I wanted to get. Like you got a step farther than me, and then obviously, you know, unfortunately for both of us, like the champion of our division has happened to be just the greatest fighter that's ever lived. I mean, we didn't have much of a chance. You know what I mean? Like literally the greatest fighter on earth ever was the champion during our time. But then people made it to the champion level and the Hall of Fame level, and they made different levels of success. And I tell people all the time, like in business too, it's the same exact thing. Like you have to work hard. You have to dedicate everything. You have to take the risk. You have to have a little bit of luck. You have to have connections. You have to be a people person. Like you got to do all these things, but it doesn't guarantee, like The Rock, you got to be the hardest worker in the room. Absolutely. 100% I believe in that. But that doesn't guarantee that you're going to be successful or achieve your goal. And that's where you lose everybody, because not everybody wants to take that risk. Like if you were the hardest worker in the room, you'd be successful, more people would do it because they'd be like, fuck yeah, I'll be the hardest worker in the room and then I'll be successful. I'll get what I want. But when people realize that you can be the hardest worker in the room, kill yourself and still not make it because it's still a lot of other people that are doing the same thing, that's when I think half the people give up and quit. And like for me, I worked my ass off, couldn't have worked harder in my career and came up short. And in business, I've done the same thing and I've made accomplishments and I've had successes and stuff. So it's like I'm driven, luckily, to work hard, but it doesn't guarantee anything. And that's the unfortunate thing about trying to accomplish your goals is you have to take that risk of killing yourself knowing that you still might end up not being successful and not achieving your goals. So, but I will say you always at least fall better than you were. Do you know what I mean? Like if you go for something and you fall short, at least you're farther ahead than you were. So go for it. That's what I'm trying to say. The end of my motivational speech is go for it. I'm the worst motivational speaker ever.
To be honest though, like I try and look at it this way as well, because like you said, GSP was the best fighter on the planet at the time when we were trying to get the one thing that he had hold of. Like how many other people were competing for it? Like not only in the UFC, but all the guys that we went through, like in our amateur days and before, like all the guys that we were training with that never even stepped into the octagon. Like we were swimming in a pond of hundreds, and there was only one belt. So like for me, I kind of look back at it and go, maybe I wasn't supposed to be the champion. Maybe my journey was to get as far as I could, and then learn the lessons that then move me on to the next stage of my life. Like I enjoy what I do now. I feel like I'm better at this than I was as a fighter. Like that, and I don't like that reality necessarily because my ego wants me to be the best fighter on the planet.
Right.
But I can reach a lot of people this way as well. I can talk to a lot of people. I can share martial arts. I can spread that enthusiasm for what I love so much. And the more I do it, the more people appreciate it. The more I realize I think maybe that's my thing. That's my gift. Like I was supposed to reach as far as I could and fail, but I had 10 fights in the UFC, but I experienced everything. Like I went 4 fights up. I was co-main event in my second fight in the UFC in London, right? Then I had the beef with Marcus Davis, which was massive. Then a title eliminator with you. Then lost to GSP over 25 minutes. Just got ragdolled and pinned to the mat for 25 minutes, completely ironed out. Couldn't do anything. Very, very frustrating. And then I tumbled right down the other side of the mountain. Got knocked out by Condit because my ego was out of control. lost to Anthony Johnson because I totally thought he was going to get into a gunfight with me, and then just went out on my shield against Chris Lytle because I'd given up. You know what I mean? That was my journey. And then that could have been the end of my journey. And fortunately for me, a couple of people around me at the time, Lorenzo Fertitta being one of them, showed a bit of investment in me and said, they weren't going to cut me. He wanted to keep me in the UFC. So I took some time out and thought, I tried and failed, but maybe I'll give this one more go. And I was derailed after 2 fights, but I got 2 back. Feel much better about myself because of that. I wasn't particularly pleased with the performances necessarily, but it is what it is. And I've moved on to this career now where I'm talking about martial arts all day, every day. Like it's my job, it's my reality. I've been able to create jobs for friends of mine that can work around me now. So maybe this is what I was supposed to be doing. I do find myself very grateful for it.
Yeah, you never know, man. And you know what's weird is, like, I had that same exact, like, I told myself that same exact thing about maybe it's not meant for me to be champion, but I was just like standing right next to you right when they raised your hand. That was like when I said it. Like that was my second was my second title contention fight, and I was like, you know what? It is not meant for me to be a champion, obviously, or fight for the championship. But I do want to say, man, I want to say that you fucking fought a great fight. You came out with so much energy in that fight. Hey, we both beat Marcus Davis, so that's cool. And then going back to your fight though, you fought hard, man. You fought good, and it was a great fight strategically. I couldn't see your hook, man. And then you went on to fight GSP, and you downplayed your fight with GSP a lot just now, bro. You showed so much heart in that fight. I was super proud of how you performed in that fight. I never admitted that I watched it, but I did. Obviously, I watched it. I watched that fight. I was really hoping you would fucking win too, man, because I was like, God, if you could knock GSP out, and I went to a decision with him, that'd be good, man. I might get myself back. But I like you, man. The same thing, I had issues outside the ring, and like I kind of tumbled myself back down too, and luckily got out when I did. But it was fun, man. And I got out of MMA what I wanted to get out of it, and now moved on to something I also am enjoying more. Do you, in this case, I've asked a lot of people this, but do you feel you got out of MMA after you came to this acceptance of not being a champion? Do you think you got out of MMA everything that you wanted? Like, are you pleased for the hard work? For the hard work and all the sacrifices, are you happy with the return?
Oh, for sure. For what I put in and what I got out of it, I feel very, very grateful. Absolutely. And that doesn't mean I didn't work incredibly hard for where I did get, because I did every day. But yeah, no, I am grateful with the return that I got on it. And I mean, the lingering thing for me is I never felt like I showed my best. That's the thing that's lingering for me. But then at the same time, when I was fighting back in the day, I was in my own way so much of the time. Like, I was in my own way in training camp. I was in my own way during the fights. And had I not been able to take this break and like stop and step away, but still be, like close enough to the sport to be able to consume it at the volume that I do, I wouldn't have had the realizations about myself that I needed to when I was a fighter. I mean, that's why, I talk about it a lot, like the idea of fighting again. Like, I feel fit and strong. My mind is excellent. I've only been knocked out once. I'm in great condition. I feel really, really good. The lingering thing is I want people to be able to see what I'm capable of, and I know that I couldn't have changed anything back in the day and what I could have done, because that's who I was at the time. But who I am now is so much better. And there is that still that desire to compete. I still feel like I could beat a few of these guys, but I'm debating as to whether that's my ego getting involved or not. But I still love martial arts and still enjoy it. But I'm not ever going to be a UFC champion. I'm not, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I never chased the UFC dream with the idea of being a champion, if I'm honest. That's why when in my first fight in the UFC against Gono, I didn't have any pressure, because I felt like I'd achieved my goal. It was just to reach the UFC was the goal, and I did it. So then I had to kind of refocus and think about fighting for a title. And that wasn't, that was quite a recent goal, to be honest, when I joined the UFC.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. And I've had the same feeling too, periodically, but yeah, I thought you had a great career, man. You've had some good fights. I think just going back, whether it makes you feel good or not good, in our fight, I think it wasn't. I think luckily for me, my previous fights were good enough, and I got enough knockouts that I built up enough respect to you that I got an easier fight against you. I don't think you fought me as aggressive as you could have, which means I think had you showed up how you should have, like 100% or close to 100%, mentally you were when you walked out, you were fired up. But I think during the fight, had you would have knocked me out that night for sure. And I know that because you rocked me a couple times. And you got so excited, bro. Like, I remember seeing your eyes, dude. You hit me one time, and I was like, oh, shit, that was good. Because I had no answer for your hooks, dude. Like, they were so fast. And you caught me right on the jaw, and it rocked me. And your eyes were like the same as I get. You got excited, and your head moved forward like, I'm going to finish him. Like, your head shot forward, but your body didn't move. Because your body didn't move, because you know what happens when you shoot forward sometimes with me is I'll fucking hit you back. But I'm happy that you didn't, because maybe I wouldn't have, and you would have just crushed me out. So I was very fortunate that you didn't follow through with those 2 times you really got me rocked. So thank you for that. But I mean, look, man, honestly, 2 big mistakes that you could have finished me, and you still went on to win a great fight and do really good, and then have a great fight against Georges St. Pierre. So I have to ask you though, like, because I heard a while back we had similar heart conditions, and then you said about you might fight again. You kind of are talking as if it's still kind of a possibility. Is there any chance at all that you'd fight again, or is it completely out the door?
Yeah, no, there is. It's a serious thing I'm thinking about. I mean, right now I'm just kind of ticking over and training, and just kind of, because I don't know when this is going to end. I'm slowly starting to pick my training up and bring my condition about. But I'm hitting the bag all the time. I have the gym in my house. Like, the videos I post on my Instagram, that's in my house, fortunately, so I can train whenever I like. And because I watch so much MMA every day, like I'm just, my knowledge of the sport has just grown exponentially since I was fighting myself. So I feel like my training camp will be far more smarter and streamlined now. And every one of my opponents, because I'm not getting back in the mix of the contenders. Like, if I'm fighting again, I'm looking at guys like, I'm like Pettis and Cowboy. Like, I had a couple of friends who I do a show with on BT Sport over here, and they were joking, that's the Dan Hardy Eliminator fight, and I'm getting the winner. And someone actually did put it to Pettis after the fight whether he'd like to fight me, and he said he would. So I mean, that's a possibility. I think Anthony Pettis would be a great matchup for me. Him and I at 170, we're about the same size, because I'm not nearly as big as I used to be either. Like, when we fought, I think I got back in the octagon at about 186. But most days now I'm about 180. So him and I fighting at 170 would be perfect. I think Cowboy would be a great matchup for me as well.
That would be a sick fight.
Because he's a veteran. And that's the kind of thing I'm thinking. I'm not delusional. Like, I'll have a couple of fights and then see where the title shot's at. Like, that'd be ridiculous of me, because I'm not of my mind. I'm not in the mindset to get back in the mix like that, because I have too many other things going on that I enjoy too much. And the other thing as well is, like, with the job that I do, one of the best things about it is that I can be impartial and I can just be a fan. And if I start thinking about, well, he's the number 2 contender, maybe I'll get a fight with him next, then it changes everything about the job that I do. And I think DC can avoid it, because he doesn't need to talk about the other heavyweight contenders, because he's only maybe got one fight in his future. But you can hear it when Felder and Cruz are talking. Like, I might fight this guy at some point. There's a potential I might. And it does change the way that they do the job, I think. So I wouldn't like it to get in the way of my commentary and my analysis, because that's my main thing now.
So once this is over and the pandemic's done and fighting's kind of back to normal, or maybe gets to a point where these fights are working and that Cerrone contract comes in, are you going to sign it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. If the time and the location's right, absolutely, I'd sign it. I think, the reality is, like, he's at the end of his career. I mean, that's 4 losses in a row. I've been there myself. And I'm not saying that he can't come back and turn it around and pick up a couple of wins and stuff, but he's far enough away from a title shot now to just kind of pick and choose and have fun fights that make sense to him. And I think I make sense. I think that it would be a fun fight. I mean, he's had a lot of fights since the last time I fought. He's got a lot of experience. He's also taken a lot of wear and tear. I feel like I know his game very well, because I've watched his fights over and over again. I just think it would be a fun one. Maybe loser leaves town. Maybe it'd be we fight for pink slips. We could do it like old hot rod racing style, and loser retires.
It's crazy of all the welterweights that we talk about at Cerrone, because, dude, I can't think of a better matchup for you being at this stage. Like, that would be a sick fight, man. That'd be something I would definitely enjoy seeing for sure. Are you training hard? Like, are you taking shots, like taking shots, sparring hard, or are you just kind of staying in shape and going through the motion and staying sharp with your technique?
Yeah, no, I've not been taking shots for a while, to be honest. Now, I mean, I've dropped, because I have my own gym now. We have a cage in the gym, and I drop in from time to time with the fighters as they're preparing for fights and stuff. And but I'm not taking big shots. I'm not sparring hard. I don't need to be right now. I'll drop that in when I need to. I mean, I do a lot of like play sparring and stuff, and I feel like my timing will come back very, very quickly. Partly because I just feel very sharp. I feel like I've got good control of my tools. Let's put it that way. Like when back in the day when I was fighting, I had a jab. Now I've got 12 different options with my lead hand, and I know them very well. I know how to apply them, when to apply them. My shot choice, my shot selection will be much, much better than it used to be as well. So, like, that's just kind of the play part towards the end of training camp. Once the condition comes up to support my, prolong the activity, then I'll start thinking about sparring.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm always going to have your back on that. I look forward to seeing you fight if you do. Who do you think is going to be? I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's a big mix in the welterweight division right now. Obviously, you're not worried about that as far as yourself, but who do you think is going to emerge and be kind of the king of this division right now? We got Tyron Woodley coming back. Colby obviously is a tough fighter, Usman. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of guys in the mix right now. And the Masvidal. Who do you think? Who do you think is going to emerge as the more solid king of the division when this is all settled?
I think there's one real interesting fighter in this division that everyone seems to just overlook him, and Tyron Woodley was lined up to face him in London, and that fight didn't happen. And I think the one to watch is Leon Edwards. I mean, he's quick. He's a big, rangy fighter. He's a very, very intelligent fighter as well. And I think, to be honest, the only thing that's holding him back is that over-analysis of everything that he does. I think sometimes people have such an operating system that they can kind of over-process. And I think, sometimes the best fighters are the ones that just rely on instinct. I think, I think you and I are a little bit like that, which is why, you're such a good coach. We analyze everything and we kind of pull things apart, and everything's got a decision in it. Whereas someone like Robbie Lawler is a little bit more instinctual, things flow a little bit easier for them. You know what I mean? So I think, I think that's the only thing that's holding him back. And I think when he starts to find his confidence, that will start to drop away. I'd like to see Leon get an opportunity to fight one of the big names in the division, whether that's Woodley or Masvidal, even, because there's beef there already. Obviously, this pandemic is going to cause issues at the moment. But then again, I don't know what's happening with Fight Island. I heard it's going to be accessible to international fighters. So I don't know whether they're going to be able to do all matches on there, or whether they're just going to keep that for international fighters or what. But he's certainly one to watch for the future. There are lots of good guys in this division, though. Lots of interesting fighters on the rise. But just no one really standing out at the moment and putting anything together that's keep catching my eye. Leon's the one that needs the opportunity right now, I think.
Yeah, Tyron trained with us, and so I'm biased and I know his training, and I'm confident where he's at. But I agree with you that there needs to be some more fights. These guys, there's a few more matches that need to happen, and then I think that guy's going to emerge for sure. I think he's definitely going to emerge. But as far as UFC 249, what do you think that did for sports? And do you think that's going to carry on and do something positive beyond sports, especially considering Trump endorsed it? Like, do you think that's going to be a big step for us, or do you think, I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on having those fights during this pandemic and then this possible Fight Island?
I think it's going to be a catalyst for a lot of live sports. I think a lot of other promoters and TV networks are going to be looking at what the UFC did and think, I can see ways that we can start getting active again. Because everyone's thinking about payroll and income for companies and keeping things moving and afloat. What we did, because I've been doing some stuff for BT Sport, who's the provider for the UK for the UFC, and they sent me some awesome equipment, and we actually did a live show around UFC 249, and that was, they sent me an iPad and an iPhone and a bunch of connections, and I had a phone call. The guy taught me through it, but like, we're finding ways of making TV. And I think that's what we're seeing now. Like, a lot of people are breaking ground. Like, that's new technology that we were using at UFC 249. We wouldn't have used it had it not been for the pandemic. You know, UFC 249 was very different because of the pandemic, but it worked. It was excellent. A lot of people tuned in. A lot, like the hashtag UFC 249 was live because a lot of people that don't normally watch mixed martial arts were tuning in because everyone was hungry for some live sports. And I think, from this point, we're going to get more live sports. I think boxing will get back on track. I think any sports really where you've got, two competitors one-on-one, there's no reason why that can't be worked out in some way. It's when you go to teams and stadiums that it gets quite complicated, I think. But it was definitely a catalyst for some more live sports.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how these next couple of events play out. And then I'm curious what's going to happen with Fight Island if this ends. Are they still going to... Maybe they just use it as kind of a themed kind of thing or whatever, but it's going to be crazy if they build this whole thing up and then all of a sudden, this thing ends and they can go back to stadiums again, and then they did all this Fight Island hype and work and stuff.
To be honest, I think it's going to stick around. I think it's going to be a permanent thing from now on because, like, what Dana White is, what Dana White's like. He's looked at this situation. He's thought to himself, okay, not how do I solve this problem now? How do I prevent this happening ever again so we don't have to take a break in the UFC schedule? Right. So, much like they've got the Apex in Vegas where they can do their own shows out of. They've got the same thing in Shanghai when the PI opens there as well. They can broadcast their own shows from there. If they've got the Fight Island, they can literally move every event to there and just keep the schedule going, all year round. I think it will be quite an interesting thing. I've got Jurassic Park in my head. We need some like big gates, some big Fight Island gates, and
they have to do something cool.
I think it's a lot,
They have to do something cool. So what is the full Reptile thing, man? Like, what are you doing? Like, what's your day to day right now? Like, I know you're still doing analyst work and commentary, right?
Yeah, I'm doing. The only thing I'm not doing at the moment is commentary because I'm not getting out of the house. I'm doing everything I can from the house. So we're doing live shows around the events now, all the numbered events for BT Sport. We do like a weekly catch-up event as well, and then I do a lot of interviews and stuff for the UFC. As an ambassador of the UFC, they always fire their media interviews towards me. So I'm doing TV and radio quite, fairly regularly. And just kind of staying busy with that as far as outside of my own projects. Currently my gym's closed, but that's fine. That's just kind of kind of everything's frozen at the moment with that. And that'll be back once things open again. With the Full Reptile stuff, there are kind of two branches to it. There's Full Reptile Collective, which is all the clothing, clothing, coffee, training gear, stickers, MCT, CBD oil, all kinds of stuff. Nice. So we've got the website, and then we've also got the Full Reptile Creative, which is they're the guys that run the YouTube channel. So if anybody jump onto YouTube and type in Full Reptile, you'll see all the stuff we do. I have two guys that work with me. They're called the Raptors, and they go to all of the live events and they do all media days and all that kind of stuff. But they produce really, really cool content. So that's been up and running for about 16 months now, and that's growing nicely. I'm enjoying all of these projects, and I'm working with my friends as well. As you'll know from experience, is a privilege.
Yeah, definitely, man, and it looks awesome. We'll put all this stuff in the description below. Since you're such a good analyst, I got to ask you one last thing. What's your breakdown on Gaethje versus Khabib? Because I have a feeling this is going to happen. And to me personally, I think this is probably one of the most dangerous fights for Khabib of anyone. Even before Gaethje fought Ferguson, I always said in previous podcasts, you'll see that Gaethje is the guy that I fear the most for Khabib. What's your breakdown of that fight, Khabib versus Gaethje?
You're absolutely on the money. You're on the money. I agree with Gaethje being a problem for Khabib, but I think, like Tony Ferguson, certainly there were things in his game that could be problematic for Khabib, just like there was for Gaethje. but they are the spinning elbows. They're the flash submissions, on during takedowns, or rubber guard off his back. Those kind of things. The things that he does around what Khabib does very well. Gaethje, on the other hand, can stop Khabib potentially. I'm not saying he definitely can. He can potentially stop Khabib doing what he wants to do. Like, Gaethje's got a very good scrappy front headlock wrestling style, and as long as his conditioning holds up and he can make Khabib work hard for his takedowns, we've seen Gaethje maintain his power into the later rounds. I don't think power in his right hand is going to drop off at all, and I think that as long as he can keep the fight standing and maintain his condition through the fight, then he's got a real good chance of getting the belt off Khabib. One thing that was interesting to me, I spoke to Gaethje just before he fought Ferguson, and he said that he wouldn't have taken a fight against Khabib on short notice like he did against Ferguson. So that tells me that he thinks conditioning is the key. He knows he needs to be on point with a full training camp. He needs to be working his wrestling scrambles, getting back to his feet. He knows he's going to be up against it. He's going to be under pressure from the get-go. The deciding factor for me is if Gaethje can maintain his condition, stuff some takedowns, he's got that power all day of the week. And as good as Khabib has been all the way through his career, because he's never tasted defeat and he's never been really hurt on the feet badly, aside from maybe getting stung against Michael Johnson one time, he's never learned that lesson that there are holes in his striking, just like Tony had not really. I feel like that lesson is going to happen at some point in Khabib's career, and Gaethje might be the guy to do it. The question is whether Gaethje can keep him standing and force him to fight on the feet, and then I think that's where the lesson's going to be learned, and that's where I'm most intrigued about it, because I don't know how their wrestling matches up. You probably know better than me, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think Gaethje throwing down the interim belt and saying that he doesn't even care about it because he wants the real belt. I was like, no, I would have taken the interim belt. I would have taken that. I would have been happy. I would have been so happy with that belt, dude. I would have wore that shit everywhere, but whatever. But that shows a lot, that shows he really wants that tough fight. And I agree with you 100%. I'm picking Khabib in the fight. And you may think it's because I'm biased, but it's also, it's not more biasness as it is I train with him and have felt that wrestling. And when he grabs you, if he can get in on you, right? Because I'm a pretty fast striker. And so it's like I can keep people at bay and counter and stay at distance. When he can get in on you and grab you from multiple different positions, to be honest with you, you have no ability to balance yourself. Like when he grabs you, you lose the ability to balance yourself, which kind of sends panic to your brain, because I've always been bigger than him, but he still grabs me and it's like a heavyweight. His grip strength is crazy. And then he'll put you in weird, like he has such weird balance, or actually makes you have such weird balance that you never feel balanced, that you can control stand on your feet, and then he can just put you where he wants. And I think that's such a scary thing. But us being fighters that have had success with knockouts and hitting people pretty hard, I think we also can agree that Gaethje doesn't have to knock him out to get results. He can hit him hard and still change the outcome of the fight, and still change, technique and style and different things. So that's what poses the interesting factor is, you say he has to knock him out, but if he hits him really hard and can do it a few times and get Khabib stunned, things can change. So I think it's a great fight, man. I think it's a much more exciting fight. I think it's as good of an exciting fight as you can get with a grappler versus striker at this stage, especially in that division. So I'm looking forward to that fight. And I appreciate you taking time out for another podcast. This is your second time. I appreciate it, man. Talking about the coronavirus, and especially you being in London. It sounds great that you're enjoying what you're doing. I'm happy for your success, man. I've always had much respect for you, even before you beat me and took my title shot away. But I think when you fight somebody for 15 straight minutes, you always have respect for them. That's a long time to fight somebody for. So I think we've gained respect in many different ways. But much love, man, and thank you for doing the podcast. We'll put all the stuff below with your companies and stuff. They look really awesome.
Thank you, brother. Always good talking to you, man. Stay safe during these times, and I'll speak to you again soon.
All right, take care, brother. All right, so there you have it, Dan the Outlaw Hardy, a name that is definitely going to stay in my head for the rest of my life, along with the dead brain cells that he put there from his hooks that I didn't see in November of 2009 and ruined my career. He's the nicest, coolest guy that ever ruined my career. So I'll always have respect for him. Seriously, though, he's a great guy. He's a great fighter. You can't fight somebody for 15 straight minutes and not have respect for him, especially when you're a fan of this person before. And a fun fact, too, that we didn't get into in the podcast, which we should have briefly at least, is before we ever fought, when Dan was new into the UFC, me and Fitch were kind of top ranked as a welterweight, and he was coming up the ranks. And we actually did a tour together. We went to Germany and we supported the troops. A lot of you guys that's followed me for a while know that I've done a lot of USO, AFE, military support tours, Iraq, Afghanistan, Djibouti, all over the Middle East, Germany. And he joined me on a tour with Fitch, and we went to Landstuhl Regional Medical Center outside of Ramstein. And we were all together supporting the wounded warriors that were coming in from Iraq that had just got either blown up in IEDs or got shot or got hurt. And that was their first stop, was in Germany. And then we went there to meet them, give them shirts and hats, and talk to them and visit them and just show them some love, because these guys didn't have any visitors or support since this traumatic incident happened, and they haven't made it home yet, obviously, to see their family. So it was a real powerful trip, and I wish we had got into it, but he actually joined me for that. So we shared that experience, and he had a lot of love and did a lot of good things for the troops and for the wounded warriors, and I respect that a lot too. So anyway, I know I'm saying I respect Dan Hardy a lot, and I know if I'm not saying I respect him, I'm talking about how he beat me up and ruined my career, but it's all true. Anyway, great guy, great guest. Hope you had a good time and took something away from this. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know any guests that you might want to see on the podcast, and we'll try to get them booked. I'm enjoying these. I love it. We're putting out a new podcast every couple of days. I'll do them every day. I mean, I'm in quarantine right now anyway, and I've vowed even when AKA Thailand gets up and running, hopefully June 15th, I'm going to continue doing these. So I'm going to keep this stuff going all the time. I just enjoy it too much. I love talking. I love having great conversations with great people. If you're on the audio platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, subscribe to us there, but definitely check out the YouTube, because it's always better to see us interact. I think it's more personal, and definitely subscribe to us on YouTube. So anyway, thanks guys for watching. I'll see you next time.